Welcome. In our previous class, we discussed decimal operations, and then I introduced you the decimal, and then we looked at decimal place values. And then we considered how to read decimals as words. Last class was an interesting class. Today, we are going to look at the addition and subtraction of decimals. We're going to look at how to add and subtract decimals. We're looking at the addition of decimals and then the subtraction of decimal. Now, what do we mean when we add and subtract decimal? These are simpler ways in which we are going to show you how to add and subtract decimals. So these are topics you're going to see in your grade 6. Welcome to middle school. Adding and subtracting decimal is almost the same way of adding and subtracting whole numbers. But this time around, we have to keep in mind something that's very, very important, and that is the decimal point and the decimal place of numbers. They are very important. One, the decimal point, and then the decimal place of number. Now, the length of the decimal number can be adjusted by By adding or removing the numbers of zeros from the decimal part. So, you're going to see all of these done as we look at the addition of decimal and the subtraction of decimal. Now, here comes the big question. What is the addition and the subtraction of decimal? The addition of decimal strictly involves the usual addition and subtraction of whole numbers, because one rule is the same rule that guides both the addition of whole number and the addition of fractional numbers. The only point that has to be taken note or be taken care of, as I said earlier on, is the decimal places or the decimal place values of such numbers after the decimal point. They are very important, because if you don't put the decimal point very well and know the place values of all the numbers after the decimal point, you might get the addition or the subtraction of decimal numbers wrongly. Now, the numbers need to be written in columns according to their place values and according to their decimal points. Now, if I have a number like this, 10.32, and I have a number like this, 2.34. I can't add this number because their decimal point does not align. So whenever you are adding two numbers, you must make sure that this decimal point and the decimal numbers do align. And once you can be able to do that, then you will be able to get correctly your decimal numbers. Now, remember in your decimal addition and subtraction. Now, remember in our previous class, we discussed the decimal place value, and in one chart, I showed you the place values of numbers before the decimal point and after the decimal point. If you can recall very well, numbers before the decimal point has the ones, the tens, the hundreds, and number after the decimal point has the tens, the hundreds, and the thousands. If you can remember them very well, and as this does increases, once it goes this way, as it goes this way, the numbers decreases. So, taking good note of the numbers and their position, their place value, is the most important things you have to take note as you do your addition and subtraction of decimal number. Now let's understand this very well with the help of this of decimal numbers, addition of decimal numbers. Now let's look at the addition of decimal numbers. When we talk about addition of decimal numbers, what do we simply mean when we add decimal numbers? Now let's look at the addition of decimal numbers. When you are asked to add decimal numbers, the addition of decimal numbers is just simply done by starting from the right hand side, and then we move on to the left hand side, and we take each part column afterwards column, just as you do the normal addition of normal whole number. Now let's explain this using what? Using this example. But then when you want to add numbers, that are first step you need to do is to write the number below the order. Write the first number below the order, and as you do that, make sure you align their place value and their decimal point, that they are placed in the same in the same line. The second part is that you should start your addition from the right hand side down to the to the left hand side. And then when you do that correctly, you get the answers to your to your question. Now let's look at how we do that using this simple example. If you are asked to add 12.5 plus 14.9. Now how do we add these two numbers? Now considering their decimal points and their place value, we'll write the 12 in step 1, the 12.5. After the 12.5, we'll have to put this point at the same place, and then we'll have the 14, and then we'll have the 9. Good. Then we'll put our addition sign here, and then we'll put a bar, and then we can start our addition. Remember, this is the tenth, this is the ones, and this is the the tenth. Excuse me. Now if you look at these numbers very well, we'll start adding from the right down to down to the left. So 9 plus 5 is going to give us 14. So we'll put down a 4 and carry a 1. 2 plus 4 is going to give us 6, plus 1 is going to give us 7. Now don't forget your point. Now 1 plus 1 is going to give us 2. So the addition of that two numbers give us 27.4. Very easy. Now as you enter your grade 6, you're going to see simple additions like this, which you want to do play around with. So whenever they give you any question to carry out addition on such question, the first thing you need to do, one, is to make sure that the decimal point of the two numbers or three numbers or four numbers those align. Even if you are given a number with different decimal places, you must make sure that their decimal place those align. Make sure that they all have the decimal point aligned. Then you can do you can add. That way you can make sure that each of these numbers are in their decimal place value. Now let's look at subtraction of number. Now subtraction of number is done the same way addition of numbers or whole number is done, or the subtraction of whole numbers are done. What we need to do is just to write the numbers correctly according to their decimal place, and then according to their place their place values. Now let's consider one good example on how to subtract decimal numbers. So the first thing you need to do is to make sure that you consider the place value of each of these numbers, and then you consider the decimal point. So write the number below each other such that the larger number, since it is subtraction, is on the top and the smaller number is written below what? Below it. The next thing you do is to subtract the decimal numbers, starting the what? From the right, moving each column, that is from the 10th position or the 100th position, moving each column to the what? To the left, and then to the 10th position or the 10th column. And once you do that, your answers will just come out. Now let's consider one good example on how to subtract what? How to subtract numbers using just these few terms I've taught you. Now if you want to subtract this number, let's say you are given this number and you are asked to solve or find the value of 15.8 minus, we'll look at minus 2.7. So the first thing you do is to align them in such a way that they have the same what? They have the same decimal place. So in this question, once we have the tenths and what? We have the tenths with the decimal point. So this is 1, this is 5, 5 is in the ones, 1 is in the 10th point, then 8 is in the 10th. Then we have 2 in the ones, and then 7 in the 10th. And then we put a cross, and then we do what? And then we subtract. We have, in this part, we have a minus. We have the 2 in the ones, we put a point, then the 7 in the 10th, and then we put a negative sign, and then we put the bar for subtraction. Now, having gotten this, what we need to do is to start our subtraction from this to this point. So 8 minus 7 is going to give us what? 1, and then we'll put a point, right? And then we'll have 5 minus 2 is going to give us 3. Assuming we have 0 here, 1 minus 0 is going to give us what? Is going to give us 1. So the solution to this is going to give us a 13.1. So whenever you are doing any subtraction, all you simply need to do is align the decimal numbers according to their place value, and make sure that each of them have or are in the aligned what? Decimal points or decimal position. And after that, you can go ahead to do or to carry out your subtraction. Now I want you to carry out these few tasks. They are just 4 tasks I want you to try out, or 5 tasks. I want you to try out these tasks, and as you try out these tasks, I want you to see the need of trying them out and dropping your answers in the comment section. In our next class, we are going to look at the addition and subtraction of unlike decimals, while looking at the addition and subtraction of decimals, and the rest will be done in our next class. So try this one. Question number 1, look at how you can go about solving this question, and then we'll want to see your comment or your answers in the comment section. And if you are in our communities, good and fine, we'll have the avenue where we have a one-on-one Zoom video or Zoom class where we'll drop your answers in our classroom, and then we can analyze and give you a feedback on the solution you have given for this question. Now the class task or the task I want to give you is this. Try out these tasks, and then let's see your solution in the next few couples of hours. For addition, we want you to add the following numbers. add the decimal numbers. Add the decimal numbers. We're given A 64.32, right? Plus you also add this to 21 point, and B, you will be asked to add 16.9 plus you add it to what? 3.3. Why the next one? I'll be giving you subtraction. You asked to solve this subtraction. Solve A. I want you to subtract 767.3. Subtract this number 0.9 from there, and then I'll give you this B 67.1. I want you to subtract this number from 67.1 1.19. And the final one I'm going to give you is a question on word problem. And what's the question? John bought a shirt. John bought a shirt of, in dollars, $24.99, and a pair of shoes for $39.50. The question is, how much did he spend in total? How much did he spend? Now try this question and be sure that once you try them, we'll get your solution, and then we'll give you the right feedback as to how you performed in this question. In the next class, we are going to look at how to add and subtract unlike decimals, and how to add and subtract decimals with whole numbers. Don't miss that class. Be sure to join our large community so that you can be able to get such videos, members only videos, once they are published. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in our next class.